We're starting today part 2 of the summary of Sefer Yehoshua. We're holding at the beginning of Perek Gimel, where Yehoshua is taking the Oren and is Mesader, the Machanois, in crossing of the Nahar Hayarden. It says in the Psukim, Yehoshua gets up in the morning. It's Yud Nisan, 33 days after Moshe Rabbeinu was Nifter. He's taking the Kohanim and the Levim who are carrying the Oren, and you, Klal Yisrael, are going after the Oren. The Oren is Lifneichen, the Kohanim Levim is thereafter, and Klal Yisrael is in the back. They are standing in Arvos Moav al Yarden Yericho. Arvos Moav is the western side bank of the Mamleches Moav, which is situated on the eastern bank of the Jordan River, and from Ovel Shittim in the north until Beis Hayeshimois in the south. Bnei Yisrael are crossing the Yarden, and per the Tzivu, they take 12 stones from the Yarden, they come to the Gilgal. The Gilgal is right there, and Gilgal is called Arvos Yericho. It's called the northern eastern part of Yericho. Between Yericho and the Yarden, there is not too much space. It's approximately 2 to 3 miles, and they are there in the Gilgal. The same day that they came from the Yarden, they built the Mishkan in Gilgal. The Mishkan stands 14 years, which is the Sheva Shekibshu v'Sheva Shechilku, and after those 14 years, the Mishkan is going to be built in Shiloh. Shiloh is not exactly the same Mishkan they took out of the Mishkan in the Midbar. The Midbar was Yerios in Shiloh. The infrastructure, the bottom is Beis Avonim, on top is Yerios, and the Mishkan is there in Shiloh for 369 years, as it specified the Sugya Arucho in Perek Paraschatas, the Los Perek in Zvochim. Afterwards, the Mishkan Shiloh is Horav. The Mishkan goes to Noiv and to Given collectively for 57 years. There's a short kufa. The Oren, who's discussed over here, is in Kiryas Yearim. Afterwards, David HaMelech buys from Avnei Yevusi the Chelka, where the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built, by his son Shlomo in Yerushalayim. Rashi says, the pasuk says, Vatem Tisu mimkoimchem v'alachtem acharav. Rashi says, Nishtanu masazeh mishtar masoyes shekol zman shemoishe yokayom hoyomu do'onon noisei atchilu marlem haderech ve'orei noisei achar beis dgolim achshav ha'orei noisei atchila. These are different anhog after Moshe Rabbeinu dies. Kol zman Moshe Rabbeinu is alive from the time of Yitzias Mitzrayim. Actually, a few days later, when they came to Sukkot, it says in the Michoel, the Amud Onon was lanchiso maderech. He was going up in front of the Machane. There was Shnei Shvatim, and the Oren was behind the Shnei Shvatim. The Amud Onon, Amud Eish stopped right when Moshe Rabbeinu was Nifter. The Gemara says, Shleisha Parnosim Tevim Omle Yisrael, Moshe Rabbeinu, B'schus was the man, B'schus Aaron was the Anon Kovet, B'schus Miriam, the Be'er, Miriam dies, Moshe, his schus is good enough to take the Gemara in Tainis to bring back the water. Aaron dies in the Rosh Chodesh of half a year before Moshe Rabbeinu. The Anon Kovet Nistalik, but they come back, and Moshe Rabbeinu does no more Anon Kovet. So there's no Amud Onon Lamchisa Maderech. There are an Arv. Moshe takes him all the way to the final destination. They cross the yard, according to the Goyen. Actually, that's the 42nd Masa of the 42 Masos in the Midbar to cross in the yard. But right now, Rashi says, you should know, there was a certain structure, how the Shvatim were. We spoke about it in length. And the structure was not only a structure b'shas the Masos, but also b'shas the Chanoyah. So we know that there's some places they parked for a day or 2 or 3. Some places they parked for nearly a year. As the Ramban speaks out, they never knew there was a Kodesh Baruch who told them, here, tomorrow we're going, or stay here for a couple of months. It took him 40 years in the Midbar to cover 42 Masois till coming in to Nehar Yarden, which is the last Masa. Comes Rashi says, this structure, this template of Masois, of the 2 Shvatim, the 3rd Shevet, and all Svivais, Ha'orin was in the center, and the Shvatim were structured north, south, east, and west, as it says in the Torah, all the 2 Shvatim and another Shevet V'aleim. This structure is different. Shaloi kederech halichosam b'midbar, the Amud Ha'onon was manig, and the Onon and the Oren was Niseh after the Beis Shvatim, that was Machane Yisrael and Machal Leviah. Here, the Oren, they put him up front, and he is the manig aderech, to capture, to come into Eretz Yisrael. The Oren, instead of the Amud Ha'onon, the Oren is going to be up front. Now, we saw that the Noise Ha'oren in the Mavar Yarden, crossing the Jordan, and throughout history, as changing. You know, the Levi had 3 sons, Gershon, Kehos, and Merori. Kehos had 3 sons, Yitzor, 3 sons, Koirach, Nefeg, Zichri, and Chevron. And they were different tafkidim in carrying of the Mishkan. Bnei Merori took the Karshe Mishkan, Bnei Gershon took the Urias, Bnei Kehos took the Klei Mishkan, and the Kehuna was given only to Aaron and the son of Amram, who is the son of Kehos, and to Loi Ulabanov. So Shevet HaKohanim is Shevet Levi, of which only one designated part goes to Aaron and his family, and the rest of Shevet Levi are carrying the Mishkan. In Bnei Kehos are the one who are carrying the Oren. That's what it says in general. But in our pasuk here in Perek Gimel, it says there were 3 times that although the Oren normally was Nisa Ledei Bnei Levi Bnei Kehos and their families, as we said before, here the Kohanim, the Mishpach of Aaron, was the one who carried the Oren. The Gemara says, Michoel says, the Sefter State, the Sugyas Hagmorians, the whole Sugyas Hagmorian Saita, Shleisha Mekoimus Nosor Kohanim es Oren. One is Bechatzayas Hayarden. This is what we're talking about here. When they crossed the Yarden, the Psukim say that the one who carried the Oren were not the Levim, but rather the Kohanim. In Milchemes Yericho, a little later, we're going to get soon to Milchemes Yericho in Perek Vav, also the one who are carrying the Oren to surround the Chemes Yericho in order to conquer the first place in Eretz Yisrael, the Milchemes Yeshua and Malchei Canaan, were the Kohanim. And the very last and third time when the Oren later on, 400 years plus later, 440 years later, when they take, Shlomo HaMelech takes the Oren and brings it from Yerushalayim. He goes through Kiryas Yehorim, and he goes through the story with Peretz Uzo, and then when they bring the Oren finally to Yerushalayim, to the Beis HaMikdash, the one who brought it to its final destination were the Kohanim and not the Levim. And we spoke about the big machlekes, the Rambam and the Ramban in Sefer HaMitzvahs. The Ramban doesn't understand. He doesn't understand that the mitzvah is ne'et kol HaKohanim. It's not true. And the Levim was never nifsal for Masa Oren Lo'olam, when the Rambam doesn't hold like the Ramban. And we discussed in length the very famous shtickle Torah from the Brisker Rav in the back of the Sefer that says that the din masa of the Levim, there are really 2 separate mitzvahs. One of them is the mitzvah of Nesias Klei HaMishkan together, and one of them is a mitzvah of Nesias Oren in itself. And that's Nesias Oren in itself is a mitzvah which was given to Bnei Aaron HaKohanim. Therefore, when you carry the Oren as an integral part of Maska HaMishkan, carrying over the entire Mishkan, and part of it is the Oren, then this Nesiya is Chelek from Klei HaMikdash, and the Levim are nice, even though it's not Bnei Aaron, and therefore all the Psukim in the Torah that describe Bnei Kehos are carrying the Oren as well. It's because they are Mekayim the din of Maso HaMikdash, Maso HaMishkan. And when it's a Maso Mikdash, Maso Mishkan, therefore Oren is Bichlal, the Masois of the Nesiya of all the Klei HaMishkan, and the Tafkid of this Masa is given and designated to the Levim. Not when you carry the Oren in itself. When you take out the Oren of the entire Klei HaMishkan and you carry it in itself, then the mitzvah is given to the Kohanim. The Psukim in Sefer Yehoshua here in crossing the Yarden, thereafter in Perek Vav in surrounding Yericho, and in Sefer Malachim that we're talking about carrying the Oren in itself, then the mitzvah is a mitzvah of Nesias Oren Bifnei Atzmoi, and that mitzvah is given to the Kohanim itself, and it's a mitzvah L'doyers. The Rambam brings down the mitzvah, the Rambam counts the mitzvah of Nesias Oren as a mitzvah Bifnei Atzmoi. The mitzvah of Nesias HaMishkan, Klei HaMishkan, the Rambam doesn't count, because the Rambam's klal is it only counts mitzvah which is Nehegas L'doyers, and the mitzvah of Masa Mikdash was Poikeya. That's the reason why the Kohanim are carrying it and not the entire Shevet Levi. We went afterwards, and I'd like to just say over a word. When they crossed the Yarden, it says, Vayemaharu ha'om v'yavoru. What is Vayemaharu ha'om v'yavoru? The Goyen comes on and says, Shemiyahu lovoi l'Eretz Yisrael, because Shiur Arbaim Shana, they were mashe in the Midbar Arbaim Shana. Therefore, Leibo l'Eretz Yisrael 40 years l'chen miyaru. And the question we asked apparently is a very obvious question. What's the width of the Yarden? There is a machlekes in the Gemara in Midrashim. 3 mandomim, one says 35 amo, one says 50 amo. Let's say the widest shear is 70 amo. Okay, so even in the widest place, the Yarden goes from the Yam Kineres in the north to Yam HaMelech in the south. But even in the widest place, the waistline where they cross in Ma'boras HaYarden, let's say it's 70 amo. Amo, let's take the shear of Chazanish. Amo is 60 centimeter, and which means that 70 amos is 42 meters, under 50 yards. So it says Vayemaru, when they crossed it, they did it fast. Why? Says the Goyim, because they were in the Midbar, Boim Shono Lechach Yemaru. The Pele is Otzum, how long does it take to cross, to walk 50 yards? If you walk faster, you walk slow, it's approximately 20 seconds different, half a minute. You know, we go Spazier, Shabbos, Noch and Chont, a minute. Shcheine Acharecha Nerutzo, there's another Goyen, in Shirashim said, Mashcheni Acharecha Nerutzo, V'yani Amelech Hador, Nagil, V'nis Michoel, says the Goyen, what is Mashcheni Acharecha Nerutzo? Hador Diksi Vayemaru Vayavor, which is a Pella, this half a second, this half a minute, this 30 seconds, 40 seconds, 20 seconds, counted twice. Sign Shir Ashir as the Shvach, the Shir Ashir Moshlei Ma'amelech is describing coming to Eretz Yisrael in the fashion of Mashcheni Acharecha Nerutzo, and Sai in here Vayamaru Aham Vayavir. So we wanted to suggest as follows: the truth of the matter is, in Chet HaMeraglim, the Meraglim got a punishment. The punishment was there in Eretz Yisrael for 40 days. Yom Lashon, Yom Lashon. The Ramban said it was a chesed, because as we know, the Meraglim went to Eretz Yisrael only on the second. The Gemara in Tainis Daf Chavtes says that B'Sheni B'Shana Shniya Shilach Meraglim in Chavtes Sivan in the second year. So in essence, they only stayed in the Midbar 38 and three quarters of a year after Chet HaMeraglim. The Ramban said they counted Lemafreya, that was a chesed HaKadosh Baruch Hu did with them. The Einish did not start from here on. The Einish started Lemafreya from the time they came out of Mitzrayim. And exactly Yom Lashon, Yom Lashon. Frag the Goyen Akasha. The truth of the matter, it's not true, because Klal Yisrael goes out of Mitzrayim in Leil Chamishasar, Leil Tesvav Benisan, in Beis Alof from 24:48. That's the year they go out in Leil Tesvav Nisan. And they're coming to Eretz Yisrael, as we're reading right now in the Psukim here, in Yud Nisan of 24:88. So we're missing 4 days from Leil Tesvav till the morning of Yud. That's number one. Number two, we know that even without the Einish staying in Midbar, it takes time for a normal person to cross. How long does it take? Psukim Feroshim the Sefer Dvar Machadasar Yoim Choyev Derech Aras Year at Kodesh Barnea, which means if Klal Yisrael would not be surrounded, Vayasav Elikim Yisrael Derech Hamidbar Yam Suf, it would have gone straight. It would have taken 11 days. So in essence, we're missing part of the Einish. We have 4 days missing because it's not the exact anniversary, and 11 days that would have taken otherwise. That's not an Einish. That's the normal fashion, the normal pace of going from Mitzrayim to Eretz Yisrael. It says the Goyen as follows: when the Meraglim leave, right at the beginning of Parashat Shlach, it says Kulam Hanoshim Roishe Bnei Yisrael. Rashi brings down Chazal Hanoshim Loshen Chashivus Lelamdecha Shebeoisa Sho'o Ksherim Hoyu. So the Goyen says a Pashto Cheshbon. If Yom Lashon, a day has 24 hours. A Yemama has 24 hours. A year has 12 months. So it comes out if Yom is a Shana, so every 2 hours is, the Cheshbon is every 2 hours is per 1 month. 24 hours, and you have 12 months, so you have every 2 hours is a month. That's the equation of the Einish Zelu Maseh. Since Rashi brings down from Chazal, Be'oisa Sho'ok Sheirmayu, so come down from the 40 days, there are 39 full days of 24 hours. By the 40th day, the first day, is only 23 hours, because Be'oisa said one Sho'ok Sheirmayu. Therefore, you got to give him a credit memo of that hour. Now, if every 2 hours is a month, So 1 hour is 15 days, which is a half a month. So therefore, we deducted off the cheshbon of the 40 years, this 15 days, because of that hour, they were kshayim, and they went chayte b'cheta meraglim, at kan divei hagoyin. So we see a very unique thing, that everything was done mido keneged mido, which means for every single moment Klal Yisrael stays in Golus, there is a cheshbon. Says the Goyen, right now we're coming into the Yarden. Yes, to cross the Yarden takes only a half a minute or 40 seconds longer, walking fast or walking slow. But since there is no mido keneged mido for this extended amount of time, yes, there is a kiyum of Vayamaru, Vayavra, Tayarden, and Moshcheni Acharecha Narutz. I think it's a beautiful explanation to these two unique chazals. Tehillim says, Hayom Rov Hayonas Hayadin Yisoiv Le'ocher. What does it say? It says in Medrash. So Medrash Pliya, it says, Ma Ro Hayom Shenas, Ro Mechilto de Rabbi Shmuel. This is one of the Medrash Pliya, and everybody writes about it. And the Yehuda, when he was a little child, we mentioned, the Rebbe asked the class, he showed him the Medrash, was Michoel to Rabbi Shmuel. So the Yehuda, as a child, said, Shar Feheid, why did he say, Hayom Ro Vayonos Hayadin Yisoiv Le'ocher? Hayom Ro in the past, but Hayadin Yisoiv in the future is Yisoiv Le'ocher. It should have said, when David HaMelech says this Mizmor, this story is history. He should have said, Hayardim Nosav Le'ocher, Sov Le'ocher, but not Yisoiv to the future. Says the Yehuda, the little Chatzkale Lando, when he was a child, he says that with the Yom, when they came to Yam Suf, the Yom saw the Osi, that the Jordan in the future in Yeshua, Yisov Le'ocher. And he said, the Yam said, if in the future the Yarden would be Yisov Le'ocher, would be going back because of the Schus of Yeshua ben Nun, who is the Talmud of Moshe Rabbeinu. So if b'fnei the Talmud Nivka Yarden, Kolshken, I got to split myself. That's Michoel to Rabbi Shmuel. Michoel to Rabbi Shmuel is Kal V'chomer, is in Bryce's Rabbi Shmuel. Ma Ro Hayom Shenas, why did he made a Kal V'chomer? Madach the Talmud Yeshua, he had the schus of having split in the Yarden, Kal V'chomer Moshe Rabbeinu, that's what he said. But there is a basic, that's a sharfkeit of a yingle of the native Yehuda as a child, but there is a different, just to look, once we talk about that, a very basic difference between the Kriyas Yam Suf. Moshe Rabbeinu and Kriyas Yam Suf had to go through a bunch of hurdles. Moshe was main if the Yodoi, and even after he was main if the Yodoi, he wasn't split, he needed Mesiras Nefesh. The Gemara comes along and says in Satan of Lamed Zayin, that only after Nachshon ben Aminodov jumped in, the Yam was Nichna, Sora Shel Yam, and it's not going, so Gate Menducha Shverikait in order to get the Kriyas Yam Suf. Whereby in Yeshua it says, V'hoyo kenoyach kapis ragla kohanim, as soon as they touched with their raglei kohanim and noise aroim bris Hashem, it says right away, v'ayar de mola al gdoita v'yamdu amayim ayordim milamalo, the stream of the water stops and the other water goes down, and here they have what is the difference? I once heard b'tzirusi be'aldusi mi Horav Avramsky, who said a beautiful word of man ariches, but you cannot stelzu the Klal Yisrael, the key, the oilom before Matan Torah and after Matan Torah. After Matan Torah, the entire teva, the nature was meshubad to Torah v'loimdeya. Therefore, when Klal Yisrael, when you go, Moshe Rabbeinu come out of Mitzrayim, found Torah, medafo mashteken, you need a mata, you need a Mesiras Nefesh in order to get to the nace of Kriyas Yam Suf. Whereby by Yeshua ben Nun, what we're holding many years after Matan Torah, and the Torah is meshubad to loim that teva. There's many examples we're not going to go into where the Torah is meshubad. The teva is meshubah to learn the atayr, and therefore you don't need, as soon as v'hoya kenoyach ragle kapres akayanim, the Yarden is nifka. We're going to go right now, move to Perek Daled, to the first 9 psukim, the story of the Avonim. In a nutshell, these are machlekes, 4-way machlekes, but the Sugyas HaGemara in Soita in the Lamed Hey says there were 3 different kinds of stones. One that Moshe was making be'eretz moyov. It says be'ever Yarden, be'eretz moyov, Moshe took 12 stones. One where Yeshua was making in betoich Yarden, and 12 avonim that he was making in the Gilgal. When he came to Gilgal, he opened up and he put down the 12 avonim. The question is if this avonim that they took from the Yarden The Gemara Vaistois that they took it to the Mizbeach, they built a Mizbeach and Har Evel. The Kiplu, after they used it for the Mizbeach, the Maila Oilos and Zvachim in Gilgal. The Gemara says it was a major nace. They walked 60 miles from the Yarden to Har Grizim and Har Evel. And they, over there, the Gemara said, they walked 60 miles, they took the Avonim, they put it up, they wrote the Torah on the Avonim, and they made a Mizbeach, and they made the brachas and the clothes, and afterwards, Kiplu es Avonim, they folded them up, and they took it with them, and they took them to Gilgal. That's what it seems to be saying. The question is if it's the same Avonim, not the same Avonim. We spoke about it in length, and they, as it seems from the Sugya Sagmor in Soito, the Yeshua told them that you should take the Avonim, and we want to perpetuate with a monument in Gilgal that anybody that comes go on later and sees the Avonim will know the nace of the Yarden, and those the Avonim in the Gilgal. That the question is if it was one set of Avonim, two sets of Avonim. Is there Radak, there's Rashi, the Sugya Sagmor in Saita, back and forth with steers, and Lemaisa at the end of the day, if you look at the Psukim carefully, you see that some of the Psukim, the Tzivui is Yeshua, and some of the places HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells them that Tzivui Hashem is to make him in the Gilgal, and 12 Avonim, it seems to be saying, just in a nutshell, that the Avonim they put B'toich HaYard, and that was the Tzivui Yeshua, that was Lezikoron, and the Avonim which were taken to make him in the Gilgal, which made a detour through our Grizim and our Evil, were the Tzivui of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We continue to carry it on, and a very fascinating thing that happened in Ma'avar Yarden. The Sugya Sagmor in Saita, the Gemara says, Yeshua tells him, listen, this is, we are right now holding in Perek Dalet, this is Al-Menas Kein Atem Oivim Nesayarden. There are two Tnoim preconditions and contingencies whereby they go through the Yarden. One of them is to be Moirish the Yoshve Oretz Mipneichem, and he says you have to mekabel imate mekabel mutov im lav boim amayim b'sheit v'mefchem. You should know it's going to be a flood. You're going to be all lost if you're not willing to undertake upon yourself to conquer Eretz Yisrael. Okay, therefore that's one thing. The other thing is, and which is a very long and extensive sugya, we'll try to wrap it up in short. Beyarden kiblam emes anistoris. The halacha is called Yisrael arevim zelazeh, and one of them is choto. Everybody gets an einish because there is a din arvis, and everyone is orev is a co-signer for his fellow friend. But until they came to the Yarden, the din of arvis was limited to nigles. In other words, if I go on the street and I see my friend Michoel Shabbos and I'm not moichin him, then I'm a chuyev midin arvis. The chuyev, the obligation is on me because kol yisrael arevim zelazeh. By Yarden kiblu alemes anistoris, which means that you have to undertake upon yourself that even if your friend does aveir b'seisa, which is unique, somebody sitting in his house, it's Michoel Shabbos, his fellow friend, the Yid, is mechuyev. He's a co-signer. He underwrites everybody else's aveiros, even b'seisa. And the Gemara brings down a raya from Ochon. We're going to see soon the story of Ochon. And Ruba Shal Sanhedrin 36. There's two pshatim in the Gemara. What happened in the Milchemes Ha'oy we're going to see later. But Ruba Shal Sanhedrin 36 from the Rosh Sanhedrin got killed in the first Milchemes Ha'oy, and only because the Yeshua was mitzavet to Machrim B'Sholol, and Ochon was Moyel, and he took Haderes. We're going to go through the story of Ochon. But the reason for that being is because just now when they're crossing the Yarden, they're taking upon themselves als the Arvus, even the Chatoim and the Storm. The Gemara says later that B'Yavne, okay, Hutro HaRetzua. The Gemara says a story. What's B'Yavne Hutro HaRetzua? The Gemara says a story that when they impeached Rabbi Gamliel, the Gemara in Brachas, when they impeached Rabbi Gamliel, the Sugya Sagmor in Daf Chavches, they impeached Rabbi Gamliel and they put up Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah as the Rosh, the Nossi, and Rabbi Gamliel said that anybody who wants to walk in by when he used to be beforehand by Rabbi Gamliel used to say that Talmud Shein Toich Chabar cannot come in, and when Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah opened the doors and he let everyone in, the reason for that being is, I'm telling you over the Rishonim and the Goyen is Masber, that Kufa there was a major machlekes between Kas HaTzdukim and Kas HaPerushim. Galil was a Purushim. He was afraid that the Tzdukim are going to undermine him and come into the Shiur and they're going to start tackling him as they wanted all the time with certain kfir and halachas, and therefore he did not let him come to Beis Medrash. Rabbi Lozman Azariah was mesalik the shemer and he let everybody come. And whoever was a known tzduki, of course, didn't come, but whoever we didn't know about, he wasn't chayker boydek, and he let him in. This is this time of the tkufa of the Churban Abayis. Rabbi Yochanan is matzliach to be mashpia on the case of Rami by the Churban. He was a diplomat, and he told him, Ten liyavne v'chachomeo, and then the Yerushalmi says, B'yavne yotzo baskoil ve'omro ein lochem chelik ben historos. The Baskoil came along and says that no longer there is a deen of co-signing of Arvis for Nistoris, only for Niglas, not the Nistoris. Comes out from the crossing the Yarden, which happened in 2288, and for 1300 years later, until they came to Yavne, 1300 and a change years later, there was a Tkufa in Klal Yisrael where there was a mutual guarantee, not only for Nigle, but also for Nitya, but B'yavne Hutro Haretzur. By the way, I think I mentioned the word from the Reb Tzodek HaKoyen that says that Yavne, state in the Ariya Kodesh, the Goyen also brings it down that Yavne is Rosh Tevis Yain Besamim Ner Havdolo. And he says the Tnuah of Yavne, he says is Milamata Lemailo, because Yain Yatayim in the Peh, and Besamim you smell with your nose. You go up from your mouth to your nose. And Ner is Bayanayim. You go up to your eyes. And Havdolah, main Das, Havdolah Minayin, it's in the Moyach of the person. You say, Hamavdol ben Kodesh lechoil. Kodesh is the Das. Das is a Chibur. And Choil is Loshan Pirud. Because the Gargirim, each Gargir is Shoro Bifnei Atzmoy. Hamavdol ben Kodesh lechoil, you're taking out from the Kedusha, which is the perfect unification, to the Choil, which is a Pirud. And this is B'yavne Hutro Haretzur. Now, we spoke in length, a couple of shiurim about the Din Arvis, which is not only a guarantee for one another to take upon themselves if somebody else is making an Aveira, like the story of the eye. There's also Din Arvis in mitzvahs, and there is a halacha that because of the Din called Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh, then each person could go ahead and be moitzi somebody else. By Birkas HaMitzvahs is a famous, it's a large sugya. Rashi in Brochis brings down, and Rashi says, the Pashta Pshat, that the Birkas HaMitzvahs, somebody already heard shofar, and he wants to go and blow for somebody else, called Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh. It's exactly like the Din Arvis of Avo, you're a co-signer, as long as the Chayiv was not Nifra, the Mitzad Eloiv, the Horav is a co-signer and he's mechuyev to return the chayiv. Mechuyev ha-mitzvahs and Klal Yisrael mekabel upon themselves. Each one and one is mechuyev in kiyum ha-mitzvahs. Not only is the person mechuyev, but his fellow friend. I am obligated for my friend out there for him to be mekayim the mitzvah. Therefore, calls zman that the mitzvah is one person in Klal Yisrael that wasn't mekayim his obligation. Everybody else is still considered mechuyev b'dover, and that's the fundamental base of the Kol Yisrael Yotza Moitzi, that you could be Yotza Moitzi. We spoke about also a separate here that there's a halacha of Shemei Ka'ine, there's a halacha that somebody hears he's Ka'ine, and what is the difference between the halacha of Shemei Ka'ine and the halacha of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh? We saw in the Rishonim that Shemei Ka'ine is the deen only, you could only be Moitzi Yedei Chayva when the Mevorech was not Yotza Yedei Chayva. And when I say somebody else listens, he's considered as if, but that's only providing I was not Yotze yet my mitzvah, then the other guy could be Yotze my mitzvah by being Shemei Ka'ine. Or the din of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh, even when you Yotze, already your obligation, you could be Moitze. And the question is, what do you need the klal of Shemei Ka'ine? If there is a halach of Kol Yisrael Arevim Zelazeh, who cares about Shemei Ka'ine? And one of the reasons of Kveger, along Rabbi Kveger, says that the reason why we need Shemei Ka'ine is in the case that you were Yotze, and if you mevorech again, there's a brochel of Atola, in order to be solving this problem, brochel of Atola, Shemei Ka'ine, since you moitzi the brocha and the person hears it from you, so it's considered that you brocha relates to the one who's Yotze from you, so the brocha is not a brochel of Atola, the other guy is considered like he's the one who is making the bracha. And we spoke about who is mechuyev in the bracha. Somebody is mechuyev in the rabbanon, can be moitze mechuyev the rabbanon, even though there's not the two different sugim of chiyuv the rabbanon, noshim and ktanim. Each one of them is a separate obligation, and they can be moitze. Rabbanon can be moitze the rabbanon, but the rabbanon cannot be moitze somebody. Is the oraisa for somebody is only mechuyev with the rabbanon, and we spoke about it. And the Rosh comes along and says that noshim there's no din of arvis, and the shaila was what happened. Somebody davened Friday night, and his wife did not daven. The person was yotzei chayvas kiddush by tefillah with the oraisa, and the chiyuv kiddush by him alayayin is only a chiyuv the rabbanon. His wife that didn't daven yet is mechuyev kiddush the oraisa. The question is, since there's no din arvis on noshim, so a person doesn't have a din arvis on her, so he can't be moitzei yedei chayvasa because he was yotzei yedei chayvasa with the oraisa. And he cannot be, he's only Chaim D'Rabbanan, cannot be Moitze D'Oraisa. Or even though Noshim is not in the Chiyuv of Arvis, because the Chiyuv is called Yisrael Arevim Zelozeh was not said by Noshim, but when the person was Klal Yisrael was Mekabel upon himself the Arvis, the Noshim were included in the Chiyuv, and that's the Rosh, and the Rosh is a Shaila if there is a Chiyuv Arvis Klap and Noshim, or there is not, it's longer Riches, and we will continue weiter. Klal Yisrael crosses the Yarden. It says they come at the end of Perek Daled. They come in, they take the 12 Avanim, and they put in the Gilgal. At the end of the day, they come into Gilgal, which they come back from Har Grizim and Har Evo, and again they pick up the 12 Avanim, they put them there in the Gilgal, and they build the Mishkan of Shiloh. The problem is, the Sugya Sagmora in Zvachim Daf Kuf Yud Ches says, the Mishnah comes along and says that the Mishkan in the Midbar was 39 years, and counts, makes the whole Cheshboinus, like we said before, how long it took, and how long it took him to each and every one of the Mishkanes. And the Mishnah comes, says like this: Bishman, that they were in the Midbar, there was the Isur Bamas, and not allowed to be Makrav in a Bama. And we know Klal Yisrael want to be Makrav in Bamas, the Bamas were Asuris. When Yeshua puts up the Mishkan, as soon as the Mishkan in Gilgal is put up, the halacha is that the Bamas is Mutoris. For the next 14 years during Kibush V'Chalukah, anybody who lived and resided in any part of Eretz Yisrael could go on Rosh Gagoy, Rosh B'Chatzerei, put up a small bama and a stone, a bama, whatever, how a bama is supposed to be, and be Makrav his own korbanos. As soon as the Mishkan Shiloh was put up, as again we said, which partly Mikdash, partly Mishkan, the halacha was of the Esra Bamas. So from after 14 years, for the next 369 years, the Bamas were Osir. Afterwards, when Shiloh, in the time of Eli, when they lose the Milchama and Plishtim, Shaul gets killed, and Bnei Eli, Chofni and Pinchas also get killed, and Eli falls down and he gets killed, and Horav Shiloh, and they go to Noiv and they put up the Mishkan in Noiv for 14 years, and 13 years they put up the Mishkan in Givain, and the halacha is Bol and Noiv Bol given Abamas Mutoris. Again, you're allowed to be Makrav in Abama, and after Noiv given those 57 years, it's the time of David HaMelech, who he buys the Chelka of Beis HaMikdash, and Shlomo HaMelech puts up the Bais of Beis HaMikdash, Yerushalayim. Says the Mishnah in Zvachim, Ein Acharei Heter, is no longer a heter to bring any korbanos once you come into Beis HaMikdash. So the question is obvious. When Klal Yisrael are coming to Bo Gilgal, it says in the Mishnah, Habamois Mutoris, but Kol Zman, that they're not Bo Gilgal, they're still in the Midbar, they're not allowed to be Makriv, any korbanos in the Mokem anyway. And somebody who was Makriv in the Bama, he's over and Shutechutz, is Chayev Koris. Okay? Till the Mishkan, as we say, the Oves, Achel, Hucha, Mishkan, you could be Makriv B'chol Mokem. We find Avram, Noach, Odom Arishon was Makriv B'yom Shenivro, Noach was Makriv B'korban, Mizbeach, Avram, all the Oves were Makriv Korbanos until the date of Hakomas HaMishkan in the second year of Tzeisa Me'eretz Mitzrayim and Rosh Chodesh Nisan. That became the Easter Abamas until they put up the Mishkan in Gilgal. So the question is very, very obvious. If you look in the Torah, in Parashat Kisov, it says, V'oya ba'overchem es hayarden, Take these stones. You write the Torah on top of the seed. We're going to see later how they wrote the Torah on the Avonim. And you are going to boniso shom mizbeach laHashem Elokecha psukim b'feroshim the Torah v'aleisa olav oilos v'zavachta shlomim v'ochalta v'samachta. And there, as we see later on, if we're going to take a look at the psukim later on in Perek Ches, we're going to get there very soon. It says that Yeshua, Oz, even Yeshua came in Mizbech LaHashem Ba'ar Sinai Ba'ar Evel Kashetziva Hashem L'Kakos B'Teras Moshe Vayalu Oilis LaHashem Vayizbechu Zvochim. Yeshua built it when, that's again, Yud Nisan, they go, they had a Neis, Kfisa Saderech, Chal Yisrael gets, they walk through 60 miles, and they come into our Evel, they put up a Mizbech, the Ma'il Oilis Zvochim. The question is obvious. We're still holding in the Tkufa of the Mishkan Amidbar because we didn't put up the new Mishkan. The heter of the Bomas commands at the time when they put up the Mishkan in Gilgal. Because the Mishkan in Gilgal was not built, you're not allowed to be Makar B'Boma. So we're in the world, say it's not a Boma, it's a Mizbeach, but the Lamaisa is Shemazman Isra Bomas, and how in the world could they be Maila Oilus and Shlomim in the Har Evel a day before they get in? They came the same night. The next morning they put up the Mishkan in Gilgal before, and the Chure, this Korbanos Shchut Chutz, the Torah says, go ahead and be Makri. It says the Psukim B'Feroshim in the Torah, which Yeshua followed according, but how does he do that? So there is a Pasuk and the Medrash and the Pasuk in Tehillim. In Pasuk in Tehillim in Perek Tes, it says a famous Pasuk, Li Gilad V'li Menashe Ephraim Me'oiz Roishi Yehuda Mechoikeki. The Medrash says, Li Gilad, it's 4 people that were Makri Bish'as Isra Abamas, where they had an exception to the rule. It says, Ephraim Me'oiz Roishi, it's Yeshua bin Nun. Yeshua is Lamata Ephraim, as it says, Lamata Ephraim, Yeshua bin Nun. He is the son of Nun, who is the son of Elishama ben Amihud, who is the Enikel of Ephraim. So Yeshua, Li Ephraim, it says, Imbo Odom Leima Alecho, says the Medrash. Loma Bonam Mizbech Bar Evel, Kemon Ksiv, As Yivne Yeshua Mizbech LaHashem B'Har Evel V'La Mishkan Lo Yashom V'Ksiv Ishish M'Bnei Yisrael. Mishkan Lo Yashom means to say the Mishkan was Bish'as carrying it, but Lamaise they was still called Kufas HaMishkan of the Midbar because they're carrying it until they rest and they rebuild the Mishkan in. And it says Befeirush Aniu Omar Elokim is a famous lashon of the Medrash. Omar Elokim HaKadosh Baruch Hu tells you, Aniu Shomarti Loi Ubonisa Mizbech LaHashem Elokecha Mizbech Avonim V'Kenu Omer Kashetziva Moshe Evet Hashem Es Bnei Yisrael Kakos B'Teras Moshe Ve'Eleisa Olav Oilos Ever Omer Ephraim Moiz Roishi. The Bomas were not mutter in Har Evel because they didn't come to Gilgal, and the Easter of Akrov B'Chutz LaMishkan was, and if somebody would have gone in the afternoon in the journey on the way there, on the way back, and stopped by and shech the korban, b'chayev shchut chutz b'chayev chorus. But being in our Evel, there was a special irashah that they were able, in Yeshua, not only they were able, but there is a tzivui to be makiv there. If you look up in Yerushalmi and in the Sifri, collectively it says that lo yisas and ken Hashem elokecha d'isur shchut chutz. It says hayoyim anu metalten mesamishken anu asurim bebama. And therefore, the question is, it says it's still metaltal mishkan should be also bebama, and behechrach it was heras shah. Rishalmi says in Megillah that when the oren is bibifnim is almost abamas asuris yotza abamas mutoris is the tafkid of the oren. There is a tafkid of the oren. We spoke about the whole Shikol Torah of Meshech Chochmah, about the fact that whenever we find Yuat, all the exceptions to the rule, we're going to see in Sefer Shoftim, when they came to Beichim, was Imilu Tkufa Shiurei, but the Oren was not Bimkoimeh. Whenever the Oren is not Bimkoimeh, really there is a direct linkage between, if the Mishkan is only Oisa de Bamas, when the Oren is Betoichei. And the reason why the Oren is connected, the Oren is Bimkoimeh, is the Shechina is Mizgale in that Mokoim. When the Oren is there, you're not allowed to be Makiv Mechutzalei. But when the Oren is out, there is, if the Oren is in there, there is a Mokim, is a bias, it is Galus Hashchine, and therefore any Akrova, says a Me'esimcha, Mechutz LeMokim Hashchine, is not accepted. Whereby, In the Oren is not b'mkoyim, there is no mokum esuya for his galus hashchina, and therefore you can be marked b'chol mokum, b'chol zman. We're going to stop right here.